Good morning, students. Please note down the syllabus of MSc. So we'll have first 3 unit for the MSc, that is Introduction, Intelligent Agent, Problem Solving, and Constant Satisfaction Problem. Today we are going to have a quick brush up of this topics that we learned in these 3 units, and that will help you during the preparation for MSc. So we'll start with the first unit. Okay, so here we have two parts: introduction of AI and then intelligent agents. So main idea. Uh, so in AI, we are actually trying to build intelligent agents, right? And here, these agents have sensors. Through the sensors, they receive the percepts and they perform the actions using actuators, right? And they implement some function which will map this percept sequence to the action. That function is known as agent function, right? We say any entity has intelligence if he can perceive, understand, predict, and manipulate a world. Okay, and this artificial intelligence is an attempt not just to understand but also to build intelligent entities. Okay, and this term was coined in 1956 during the Dartmouth conference. And we have seen these four categories of AI definitions. Uh, Along the top row, we are comparing this definition talks about the thought process or reasoning of the agent, and the bottom row talks about the behavior of the agent. Okay, so whether it is thinking humanly or rationally or acting humanly or rationally. Along the first column, we compare the performance of our agent with the human agent, and in the second column we compare the performance of our agent with the ideal performance. Okay, so this is how we have these four categories, and if the question is define AI, so you can answer that by writing AI is defined under category acting rationally as, and you can write one of the definition from this category. Okay, or you can write multiple definitions also. Then we have seen this categories in detail. So we have studied Turing test under acting humanly. Then we talked about GPS, that is general problem solver, under thinking humanly. And then logic, how we use logic under thinking rationally, and then acting rationally. Okay, so we are focusing on this category acting rationally, where we try to build rational agents. Then we talked about foundation of AI. So these many fields have contributed in the development of artificial intelligence. Okay, so AI has taken many models and many theories from this category, these fields. And then we have seen the history of AI. So we have seen discoveries of different models and different theories like neural network. Okay, so these are some significant discoveries in the development of AI. And then we have seen the state of art. State of art achieved by different fields with the help of AI. So we have seen state of the art in autonomous vehicles, right? So these vehicles are practical now, right? Then speech recognition. So speech recognition is very accurate because of AI. Then autonomous planning and scheduling, game playing, then spam fighting, logistic planning, robotics, machine translation. So these many fields have achieved state of the art because of AI. Then second part in this unit is intelligent agents. Okay, so this is the schematic diagram of the agent. So here we have a block for environment. Okay, so our agent is interacting in the environment, and this is the block of agent. Now agent has two main components, that is sensors and actuators. So agent will be sensing the environment through the sensors, and that input is known as percept. Okay, and it has some logic, and based on that, for the given input he will decide the action, and the action will be performed on the environment using actuators. The actions is performed on the environment. Okay, so the state of the environment will change. Then okay, so what is the definition of agent? Agent is anything that can be viewed as perceiving its environment through the sensors and acting upon that environment through actuators. Okay, so this is the description of this diagram. Then percept, the current input is known as a percept, and the entire history of the input is known as percept sequence. In general, the agent's choice of an action at any given instant can be defined can depend on the entire percept sequence observed to date, but not on anything it hasn't perceived. Okay, so the choice of action depends on the percept sequence. Okay, it will not decide based on any other parameter. And we have seen this vacuum cleaner example, and this is the agent function for that vacuum cleaner. So at the start, this agent function, this table will be empty, and as soon as it gets the input, we'll start filling the entries in this table. Okay, so first entry can be a clean. Okay, so what we have to do, if we have clean a block, so we'll move to right block, right? So action will be right. Then if the block A is dirty, then we can perform action suck. Okay, now this is for first input. Then for the second iteration, we'll append that percept to the percept sequence. Okay, so we'll have such incremental percept sequence, and we will have corresponding actions. Now a simple agent, what he will do, for the current percept sequence, he will refer this table. Okay, and he will just take the action, corresponding action, and he will perform that. Okay, so he will perform a lookup action on this table. And actual implementation of this agent function is known as agent program. Okay, so as you can see, this bottom figure is the agent program of this simple reflex agent. Okay, then so definition of agent function. So it is a function which maps any given percept sequence to a particular action. Okay, and what is the agent program? It is the actual implementation of the agent function. A concrete implementation running within some physical system is known as agent program. Okay, then we have studied the concept of rationality. Rationality means doing a right thing, right? So rational agent is one that does the right thing. A sequence of action causes the environment to go through the sequence of states. So we have seen this, right? So the actions are performed on the environment, right? So environment will go through sequence of states. Now if that sequence is desirable, then we can say that our agent has performed well. Okay, and based on that, we have defined this performance measure concept. Okay, this performance measure defines the criteria of success. Okay, now how to define the how to design a performance measure. Okay, so this is a general rule. So this sentence is very important. It is better to design a performance measure according to what one actually wants in the environment, rather than according to how one thinks the agent should behave. So here I have given the example of a JCB, right? Okay, so I want to develop one land. Okay, and I'm hiring a JCB guy. Okay, now how do I pay him? Okay, so I can have two criteria. First one is based on the agent performance, means how much diesel is consumed by that JCB, or I can define based on the environment states, means how much land is developed. Okay, how much land is clean. Okay, so now this criteria is better. Okay, because that JCB wala may just roam in the land without cleaning the land. Okay, and he may consume the diesel, right? So it is better to design the performance measure according to what one actually wants in the environment. I wanted a clean plot, right? Okay, so this is how we can design the performance measure. And then we have seen the definition of rational agent. Okay, so based on this 4 parameter, we can define a rational agent. Okay, so rational agent should select an action. Okay, so there are different actions possible to the agent. He will select that particular action that is expected to maximize its performance measure. okay, given the evidence provided by the percept sequence and whatever built-in knowledge the agent has. Okay, so based on his knowledge, he will select that particular action who is expected to maximize its performance measure. This is about rational agent. And we have seen the rationality for vacuum cleaner. Okay, and then along with the rational agent, we may have omniscient agent. Omniscient means what? These are the agent who knows the actual outcome of its action and can act accordingly. Okay, so this is the best agent, but this is not practical in the real world. Okay, because along with our agent, other agents are also interacting, right? So they may change the environment according to their actions, right? So this is the ideal case. Okay, but we are focusing on the rational agent. If our agent has no learning, we can say that our agent lacks autonomy. Okay, but our rational agent should have a learning component. Okay, a rational agent should be autonomous. Okay, so that's why it should have a learning component. Then when we say environment, we are talking about the task environment. Okay, and task environments are essentially the problems to which our rational agents are the solution. Okay, and we specify our task environment using PI's descriptor. Okay, so PI stands for performance measure, environment, actuator and sensors. Okay, so using this tabular form, we are describing our environment. Okay, we are covering all the aspect of the environment. And then we have seen different types of environment. Okay, so let us see one by one. First one is fully observable environment versus partially observable environment. Okay, so now if the sensor of the agent, if it gives full access to the complete state of the environment, then we can say that our environment is fully observable. Okay, so we have watch over all the aspect of the environment. And partially observable means if some part of the state is missing. Okay, for example, vacuum cleaner world. Now if he is in block A, he cannot see in block B, right? So some part of the state is missing, or it may happen due to the noisy or inaccurate sensor. Okay, so if one of the sensors is not working, then fully observable environment may become partially observable environment. And then if your agent has no sensor, then we can say that the environment is unobservable. Okay, now out of these three, which one is the easier to work in? Fully observable is easier, right? Because we have complete information. Now single agent and multi agent, so this is obvious, but in case of a multi agent, these multiple agents may work in competitive or cooperative mode. Okay, now in taxi driving, they are cooperative to avoid accidents, right? So this multi agent may work in competitive or cooperative mode. Then deterministic. Okay, so if the next state of the environment is completely determined by the current state and the action, then such environment is known as deterministic. Consider the case of chess. Okay, so if I move a rook, then I can determine the next state, right? So that is a deterministic environment. And stochastic means random in nature. Okay, and cannot be determined. Then episodic and sequential. Now in episodic, what happens? The entire experience of our agent can be divided into individual episode, and each episode is independent. Okay, so that doesn't affect the other episode. Okay, so only the current percept is required for the action. Okay, so we have to consider only current episode. Okay, but sequential, current decision could affect all the future decisions. Okay, so the part picking robot is an example of episodic. Okay, so the parts which are currently are on conveyor belt, we have to decide about that only. Okay, so the past decision does not affect the current decision. Okay, so that is regarding episodic. Then static versus dynamic. Okay, so dynamic environment itself can go under change. Okay, so environment can change, and in static it doesn't change. Okay, so chase has a static. Okay, so and taxi driving is dynamic because other agents are also there in the environment. Discrete versus continuous. So discrete, here we have finite number of percepts and actions. Okay, and in continuous it is unknown. Okay, and rapidly changing data sources. So here which one is easier to work in? Discrete one, right? So under each category you have to find out which environment is easier. Okay, so based on that, so these are our different agents: crossword, puzzle solver, chess player, then poker, backgammon. So some agent will be easier, okay, and some agent will be complex. Okay, so here so easiest one is the crossword puzzle because its environment is fully observable. There is a single agent. The environment is deterministic, sequential, static, and discrete. Okay, but the hardest one is the taxi driving. Okay, then we have seen structure of agent. Okay, so this is the formula of agent. So it has a mechanical part known as a architecture and the program, and we have different kinds of agent programs. So we'll see. First one is table driven agent. Okay, so here it maintains a lookup table. So for the current percept sequence, he will refer that table using lookup function, and he will pick up that action, and he will return that action. Okay, so pretty simple. Then next category is simple reflex agent. Okay, so it selects the action based on the current percept. Okay, now what do you mean by reflex action? Now consider if you touch an hot vessel, you will immediately retract your hand, right? So that action is known as a reflex action. Okay, you don't think too much on that. Okay, you just immediately retract your hand. That such actions are known as reflex agent actions. So if something happens, then you have to do something, right? So it has condition action rule. If this condition happens, you do this thing. Okay, so it maintains the knowledge in the form of condition action rules. Okay, and this agent, for the current percept, he will refer that rules, and he will decide the action. Okay, so simple reflex agent. Now limitations are, it cannot work in partially observable environment because that aspect is not known to our agent. Next category is model based reflex agent. Okay, so now it is trying to overcome this limitation. So in partial observable environment, some aspect of the environment is not known, right? So he will maintain that information in the form of a model of the environment. Okay, so he will maintain some internal state. He will maintain the internal state to keep track of the unobserved aspect of the current state. Okay, so he will maintain this state. So he will maintain the state of the environment, how the world evolves independent of the agent. Okay, so others agents are also interacting, right? So how the world evolves independent of the agent, and what my actions do. Okay, so if I perform any action, how the state of the environment will change. Okay, so this information is maintained in model based agent, and based on that he will take the decision. Next category is goal based agent. Okay, so this is very simple. Now here condition action rule is replaced by the goal information, and he will try to achieve the goals. Okay, so he will select that particular action which will take to towards the goal. Okay, that is regarding goal based agent. Next is utility based agent. Okay, so now goal based agent are prone to failure. Consider the example of our autonomous taxi. Now if so its goal can be to reach to the particular destination. Okay, now what about the quality of the ride? Okay, how safe it was, how legal it was, right? So that information is not considered in goal based agent. Okay, but utility based agent considers all the aspect. Okay, how comfortable that ride was. Okay, means all the aspects are covered. Okay, and based on that it will decide the happiness value. Okay, so it will have the goal information, along with that other parameters also. Then we can have a learning agent, and so it has four components. Okay, so learning element, it is responsible for making improvements. Okay, so he will suggest new actions. Then performance element, responsible for selecting the external actions. Then critic, it is like a observer. Okay, it provides the feedback. And problem generator, okay, so it is responsible for exploration. Okay, so trying new things is the responsibility of problem generator. Okay, so this is regarding unit 1. Now unit 2, so solving problems by searching. So we started with this example. Okay, so this is 8 puzzle problem. So here we have a tiles and we can move a tile. Okay, now so at this moment, okay, so we can have several actions possible. Okay, so we can move a 5 tile or 2 tile or 6 tile. Okay, and we have to perform sequence of action to reach to this goal state. Okay, so so we'll have a search tree. Okay, so if we apply, keep on applying actions on different nodes, you will get a search tree. Okay, so what happens in this, so in order to solve a problem, you are actually searching in that search tree. Okay, so we have seen goal formulation, problem formulation, and search. So it is a process of looking for a sequence of action that reaches the goal. Okay, so that process is known as a search. And what is the solution? It is a action sequence. Okay, so that sequence of action is a solution. And what do you mean by state space? So that set of all states is known as state space. Okay, all states reachable from the initial state by any sequence of action. Okay, that collection of state is known as state space. Okay, so your solution will belong to this state space. Okay, now well defined problem. Okay, so now you are trying to find a solution to a problem. Okay, but before that your problem should be well defined. Okay, so for that we use 5 components. What is the initial state of the problem, set of actions, then transition model. Okay, so if I perform any action, okay, what will be the next state, that will be governed by this transition model. Then goal test. Okay, so if I reach to some state S, whether that is goal or not, that can be determined by this goal test. Then path cost. Okay, so what is the cost of any action, that will be given by this path cost function. So we have seen this TSP problem, traveling salesman problem. Here our agent wants to go from this Arad city to Bucharest city. Okay, so initial state will be in Arad. Okay, now at this moment 3 actions are possible. So he can go to this Zerend city or Sibiu city or Timisoara city. Okay, so here we have 2 actions possible: go Sibiu, go Timisoara, or go Zerend. Now transition model. Okay, so if you are in Arad and if you go to Zerend, what is the result? You will be in a Zerend, right? So this is how the transition model works. So it is like a function. Goal test. Okay, so goal test, if you are in Bucharest, okay, your goal test will return true. And for each action, cost of the path in terms of length in kilometers. Okay, so what is the path cost of that? So it will be in terms of a kilometer. Then we have defined vacuum cleaner world, then 8 puzzle, then 8 queen, and we have seen this 3 missionary and 3 cannibal puzzle. Searching for a solution. Okay, so what is our search process? So from the current node we will apply all possible actions and we will generate the its childs, right? And then we will apply the same process on the childs. Okay, and we can apply the goal test at 2 stages. First one is during the expansion or during the generation. Okay, so find the solution by expanding a current state, that is applying each legal action to the current state, thereby generating a new set of states. Okay, and we have a frontier data structure. So all the leaf nodes which are available for expansion will be maintained in the frontier or open list. Okay, so all the nodes. So at this moment Arad is there in the frontier. After the expansion of Arad, Sibiu, Timisora and Zerint are there in frontier. Okay, now the problem is you may fall in a loop path or redundant path. Okay, so solution to that is you maintain a explore set where you will keep all the nodes which are already visited. Okay, so this is how you remembers every expanded node. Okay, we have seen two versions of search algorithm: tree based, okay, and graph based. Okay, so only difference is in graph base we use explore set. Okay, so graph based search will avoid the loopy path and redundant path. And this is the data structure maintained at every node. So we'll maintain 4 information: what is the state of the node, okay, so what is the current state of the node, who was the parent and what action was performed on the parent which generated this node, and what was the path cost. What is the path cost of this node? Path cost means what? This cost incurred, this is the cost of moving from root to this particular node. So these 4 components are maintained at every node, and we evaluate any algorithm based on these 4 measures, that is completeness, whether our algorithm guaranteed to find a solution when there is one, okay, whether our algorithm is complete, whether it is giving optimal solution, the best solution, what is the time complexity and space complexity. So we will measure the performance of any algorithm based on these 4 parameters. And we need these 3 quantities, that is branching factor. Branching factor means number of branches from this particular node, okay, or it can be a number of actions available at this node. Then depth, it is a depth of the shallowest solution. Shallowest means जो सबसे ऊपर रहेगा solution उसका depth. Then maximum length of any path, okay, so जो भी tree है उसका maximum depth कितना है, that is indicated by m. Now time complexity is measured in terms of number of nodes generated during the search, okay, how many nodes are generated, and space is measured in terms of node which are currently stored in the main memory. Okay, so it will include nodes which are there in frontier and explore set. So we have seen 2 strategies, that is uninformed and informed. In uninformed we don't have any additional knowledge, okay, so this search are like a blind search. We started with breadth first search algorithm, okay, so it expands the shallowest node, okay, so here we go level by level, okay, and here goal test is applied at the time of node generation, okay. Frontier will be FIFO queue, okay, so if it is a LIFO stack then our algorithm becomes depth first search, right? So it all depends on the frontier. How you implement frontier decides your search strategy. We have seen the algorithm in detail, and so here it is complete if branching factor is finite, it is optimal, but this is the problem, okay, it has exponential time complexity and exponential space complexity, and we have seen this through example. So if the depth level is 12, we require 1 petabyte of main memory, which is impossible, and it will take some days or years, okay, and this depth is pretty much possible. So we have seen the example of chess, so this depth is pretty much possible, okay, so we don't want this exponential time and space complexity. Then we have seen uniform cost search. So here this g of n is the path cost, it will expand the node with the lowest path cost, okay, so and here goal test is applied at the time of expansion. This is the requirement of UCS, otherwise optimality is not ensured. We have seen this example which showcase the drawback of the breadth first search, and here uniform cost search gives the optimal solution, and this is the completeness, optimality, and time complexity and space complexity of UCS. And DFS, okay, so it expands the deepest unexpanded node first, okay, so we'll go to the one particular branch to the deepest level okay, and if solution is not there, we'll backtrack and go to the other branch. So this is the working of DFS. Now here you can implement DFS using tree version or graph version. Now we are interested in the tree version of DFS because we have linear space complexity here, okay, otherwise we have the exponential, right? Okay, so space complexity is linear here. Okay, now in tree version we know that we don't maintain explore set, okay, and if we don't maintain explore set, then you may fall in a loop, right? So in order to avoid that, we came up with the depth limited search. Okay, so here we'll go to one particular depth, okay, we'll set the depth limit as L, and we'll go to that left depth only. Okay, now if you set L less than D, then DLS is incomplete, you cannot reach to the solution now, right? And if you set L greater than D, then your DLS is non-optimal. Okay, so now the working of DLS pretty much depends on the value of L. Okay, so for that, in order to overcome that problem, we came up with iterative deepening depth first search. So here it is a depth limited search only, but here we increase the value of depth limit iteratively. Okay, we start with the depth equals to 0 and we go till infinity. Okay, so the iterative deepening search is the best one because it is complete, it is optimal, and it has linear space complexity. Okay, so this is about uninformed search strategy. Then we have seen informed search strategies, and we have studied these three algorithms under this. Okay, now in informed, so we'll have some problem specific knowledge, and that is used to guide the search. And here all the algorithm will expand the node with the lowest evaluation function. Evaluation function is denoted by f of n. So first, okay, heuristic function. So we will have this problem specific knowledge in terms of the heuristic function. For example, in traveling salesman problem, we may have this information. So this is the straight line distance which can be determined from using the coordinates, right? It is a Euclidean distance. Okay, so this information is available. Okay, and how it can be useful during the search, that we will see. First algorithm is greedy based first search. Okay, so here evaluation function is equals to h of n, okay, directly to the value of heuristic function. Okay, so we have seen the example. Okay, this is not complete, this is not optimal. Okay, and it has exponential time and space complexity. Then next one is the A star algorithm. Okay, so its evaluation function is g of n plus h of n. This g of n is the path cost, h of n is the heuristic value. Okay, and we have seen this A star is good one. Okay, we have seen this admissible and consistent property. Admissible means your heuristic is admissible if it never overestimates. Overestimation means what? The value of the heuristic will be always less than the actual value. Okay, it will not overestimate. And consistent means if it follows this triangle inequality property, then we can say that this heuristic is consistent. Then next one we have seen recursive best first search. Again the evaluation function is same, but it maintains this f limit variable. Now what is the f limit variable value? Now this is the f value of the best alternative. So at this first level, okay, when depth equals to 1, so for the CBU, which is the best alternative? This Temisura. Okay, so it will maintain the f value of this Temisura as the f limit of CBU. Okay, so this is the f value of the best alternative. Okay, and we will use that for guidance. Okay, and then we talked about the heuristic function. Okay, now the quality of the this informed search strategies, okay, it entirely depends on the heuristic function. Okay, heuristic, that's why it is also known as heuristic search strategy. So their performance depends on the heuristic, the quality of the heuristic Yes, the performance of the heuristic search algorithm depends on the quality of heuristic function. For that, we have defined two heuristics for this 8 puzzle problem. Okay, first one is the number of misplaced tiles, and second one is the city blocks distance of the tiles. And we have compared the performance of A star using these two heuristic. We using H1 and H2. Now, what is the search cost? So search cost is in terms of a nodes generated. As you can see, this is iterative deepening search, so it has exponential growth in the number of nodes generated, and it is not possible to proceed further, so we don't have reading for that. And as you can see, H2 is performing well here because less number of nodes are generated. And effective branching factor, okay, how means how it is able to prune the branches. Okay, so effective branching factor, see here the branching factor is 1.26. okay, so the H2, so H2 is performing well, so we can say that H2 is dominating H1. Okay, so inform algorithms are efficient. Okay, and one thing is again observable here, informed search algorithms are efficient than uninformed search techniques, but provided its heuristic must be of good quality. That was regarding unit 2. And finally unit 3, that is constraint satisfaction problem. Okay, so again this is a search problem. Okay, but here along with the other information we maintain the constraint information. Okay, so this was the content of this unit, and we explored the idea that problems can be solved by searching in the space of states in unit number 2. But in CSP, a problem is solved when each variable has a value that satisfies all the constraints on the variable. Okay, so for variable we will have a set of constraints, and we will assign the value to the variable such that all the constraints are satisfied. So this is the definition of CSP. And okay, so in order to define a CSP problem, we use three components, that is set of X, that is a set of variables. Then D, each variable will have its corresponding domain. Domain represent a set of permissible values, right? And then we have C, that is a set of constraints. We have seen this example problems, that is map coloring problem. So here variables, so we are using state name as the variable name. Okay, and we have to color this map, right? So we have, for each variable we have three colors, red, green and blue. The constraints are two neighboring cities should not have same color. Okay, so value of SA should not be equals to WA, okay, because they are neighbor. So we have total I think 9 or 12 constraints. And then one possible solution, we have seen other problems also. And then why to formulate a problem as CSP? Okay, first reason is, okay, naturally any problem will have constraint. Okay, so you have to satisfy this constraint. Okay, so why not to use that? Second reason is, if you use constraints, okay, your search tree will become very simpler. Okay, because you can propagate the constraint. For example, here we have map coloring problem, and if I assign a color to SA first, okay, and if I propagate that constraint, then that color will be gone from this variables, right? So its domain is reduced. Okay, so search tree will become very simple. Okay, and in this example there is a reduction of 87%. Okay, that's why we formulate a problem as a CSP problem. Then we have seen different types of constraint. Unary constraint, if only one variable is involved, then it will be a unary constraint. If two variables are involved, then it will be a binary constraint. And if arbitrary number of variables are there, then it will be a global constraint. And then we have seen a inference technique in CSP, which is known as constraint propagation. Okay, so what we do in constraint propagation, so here we propagate the constraint to reduce the number of legal values of a variable which in turn can reduce the legal values of another variable. Okay, so in this example only we have propagated that constraint. Okay, so once you assign the value to SA, okay, you can propagate that constraint. Okay, now the domain of this variable is reduced. Initially 3 elements were there in domain, now it has only 2 elements. Okay, so it can reduce the legal values for another variable. Okay, so here the key idea is local consistency. Okay, and we have 4 categories of local consistency: node consistency, R consistency, path consistency, and K consistency. Okay, now node consistency. Okay, you can say that your network is node consistent if every variable satisfies unary constraint. Unary constraint means involving a single variable. Okay, now in our graph coloring problem, if you see the constraints, okay, we have binary constraints only. Okay, we didn't have any unary constraint, that's why we added this extra constraint here. So what if South Australian dislike red color? Okay, so South Australia cannot have red color, so only one variable is involved. Okay, if you have to satisfy that, then you have to eliminate red color from the domain of SA, so its reduced domain will be green and blue. Red is removed, right? So this is regarding node consistency. Then R consistency, if you satisfy all the binary constraints, then your network is said to be R consistent. And we have seen this AC3 algorithm. And then path consistency. Okay, so here, so there is a problem with R consistency. So here we try to remove that. So we can say that these two variables are path consistent with respect to some other variable, third variable, that is xm. Okay, so if you assign these two values to xi and xj, okay, if they are consistent, if we have consistency for xi and xm and xm and xj, okay, then we can say that this xi and xj are path consistent with respect to xm. Okay, and general case is known as k consistency. Okay, so two variables will be consistent if they are consistent with k minus 1 variables. Okay, then assignment. Okay, assignment is the procedure of assigning a values to the variables. Okay, and if that assignment, if it is not violating any constraint, that then we can say that that assignment is consistent or legal assignment. And complete assignment, when all the variable gets the value, then we can say that it is a complete assignment. And a solution to a CSP, if the assignment is consistent, okay, and if it is complete, then we can say that we have found the solution. Partial assignment, okay, so values to some variables is missing. Then we have seen backtracking algorithm. So consider this example. So here we have assigned red color to WA, then green color to NT, and red color to Q. Now WA and Q, they are neighbor. No, they are not neighbor in this diagram. Okay, but if once the constraints are violated, we'll terminate the search there and we'll go to the other branch. Okay, that's the working of backtracking. So it is a modified version of DFS. So when where we have added the constraint information also. So here till now we have not answered these three questions: how you are ordering the variables, variable ordering, and how you are ordering the values. Okay, and what is the inference mechanism that you have used. Okay, so we'll talk about that. So variable ordering, so here we have two heuristic: minimum remaining value heuristic and degree heuristic value. So here we'll choose the variable with the fewest legal values. Okay, so we have this 7 variables and we have domain. Okay, so we'll select that particular variable with the fewest legal values. Okay, at the starting all have 3 values, right? So we can choose the node randomly and then we will decide according to this rule. Degree heuristic, okay, so this will select the variable that is involved in the largest number of constraints. So here you can see SA is involved in 5 constraints. Okay, so we'll select the SA first. Then we talked about value ordering. Okay, so here we have one heuristic called as least constraining value. Okay, so it prefers the value that rules out the fewest choices for the neighboring value. Okay, uh, otherwise what will happen, we could not find a solution. Okay, so that's why we prefer the value that rules out the fewest choices for the neighboring values in the constraint graph. So and inference, we have seen forward checking. This is the another name for constant propagation. So if you see this example, it is like a constant propagation. And then we talked about local search. Now till now what happened, we assigned the values to the variable one by one, right? But local search will start with the complete assignment. Okay, so we'll have complete state formulation, all the variables will have the values. Okay, there will be some conflicting ones. For example, this q7 is conflicting with q4. Okay, so now during each iteration we'll change the value of one variable. Okay, and we'll find out the solution. And we have seen this minimum conflict heuristic, okay, under this local search technique. And final topic was structure of the problem. Okay, so here we have examined how the structure of the problem is going to help us in order to find a solution quickly. So the idea was, so if you can convert the graph into the tree, then we have a better solution to that. Okay, so we have seen these techniques. Okay, so tree CSP problem solver algorithm. Okay, so our aim here is to convert our graph into a tree, then we can apply this solver algorithm and thereby we can find the solution quickly. So here as you can see we have a graph. Okay, so now using this heuristics, we are converting this graph into the tree. So if you just remove SA, you are getting a tree, then you can apply this efficient algorithm and find the solution quickly. Okay, so this is cut set conditioning. Okay, cut set is the vertex or set of vertex. By eliminating them you can get a tree, that is known as a cut set. A variable such that constraint graph becomes tree after removal. Yes. Then tree decomposition. Okay, so what we can do, we can group the nodes. Okay, and then you treat that as a one node, and then you can get a tree like a structure. Okay, so this is all about unit 1, 2, 3. So if you want to go in deep in particular topic, you may refer our playlist. Okay, so playlist link is given in the third unit note. Okay, notes, and you can watch that video. Okay, so we'll stop here. Any doubt, any query that you have regarding MSc? There will be 20 questions, 10 will be easy, 6 will be medium level, and 4 will be difficult. And you read the theory from the textbook. Okay, it is very nicely written book, you will enjoy reading that. Okay,